What's up, everybody? And welcome to another awesome episode of Savage Crucible podcast. It's been a while, but we're back with a vengeance. We got Rob here and Nikki with us today. Hello, guys. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
And we already got some people tuning in, which is awesome. We got, Venom, Renato's here. Thank you guys for tuning in right away. We appreciate you joining us. So we'll get right into it. So I think first and foremost, we want to thank everybody that's been coming out to the shows so far and meeting us, saying hello to us, introducing themselves to us, from PowerCon to all the other ones that we've had so far. Thank you, guys. It's been great meeting you. Rob, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that.
No, keep it coming. That's great. We really enjoyed ToyCon up in Chicago. That was a great experience. And a small show, and PowerCon was great as well. So,
yeah, we love interacting with everyone, and we love hearing all the feedback and seeing all the people that supported the Kickstarter. It truly was a great feeling for all of us. So thank you, guys. And we do have more shows coming up. So the next one here, I believe is in just a couple of weeks in Dallas, Texas. I believe that's the FanFest ToyCon. And that'll be in October 20th through the 22nd. So that weekend, for anybody that's in the area, definitely come on by and introduce yourselves. We'd love to meet you as well. And that is being followed by Maryland in November. I believe that's just a one-day event on Sunday, right, Rob?
Saturday?
Saturday the 4th. Toy Expo for that one. And then that one is followed immediately by Detroit Motor City Comic Con, which will be the 10th through the 12th. So that weekend in November. And capping off the year, I believe it's LA Comic Con, December 1st through the 3rd. And that'll be it for this year, guys. So definitely, if you're in the area, you can make it out to those shows. I do know that Nikki will be at the LA Comic Con.
Yes, I'm gonna go back to my home state and enjoy it.
Yeah,
California
so swing by and say hello to the crew, and we'd love to see everyone. So, Rob, we had a pretty big announcement this week about how the Wave 1 Lemurians are going. So I'm gonna just hand over the stage to you right now and have you talk a little bit about that, if you like.
Sure. So I think by now everyone, I would hope, knows about our shipping update in terms of delivery date. We're going from Q4 to Q1. We're about 12-ish weeks behind schedule. And it's unfortunate, but these things do happen. But we are getting a lot of progress at the factory, and we're really happy where we're at. We're not ecstatic that we couldn't get figures in hand for by Christmas, but we still feel like there's a lot of movement. So overall, like I said, we're pretty happy.
Very nice. Yeah. It's good to see also, just being transparent with everyone. Everybody is definitely up to date with everything as much as we are and as much as we know as well. So just trying to be transparent and telling everybody exactly what's going on is great. So we do have some things from the factory that has to do a little bit with, the fits of the articulation and all of those things. You want to talk a little bit about that, Rob? Is that just kind of just testing it out now that it's molded, and seeing how that fits?
Sure. So just to get into it, and a little video that we're going to show you guys the video that I get. But essentially, so after the tooling, that's just one more step, and then after the tooling, what they do is they have to go in and test it. They don't just slap the plates on there and then start pushing figures out. It's not the way it works, unfortunately. So what you have to do is there are a lot of different factors even after the tooling that you have to account for. And yes, they're testing the tooling, but they're also testing how much, like the velocity at which they inject the plastic, how long they let it cool before they inject it out, the force that they inject it out of the tooling plate. Those are all factors that they have to consider. On top of just like parts maybe moving or some design flaws that you might not have thought of, like in the elbow, there was something that we had to go back and add a little support piece for the two discs in there so that they wouldn't move during the injection molding process. And so in the video, we talk about deformation and things like that. And David goes into it just for a second, but essentially, if you imagine like you're making a cake and you flip it over, if you flip it over too fast, the cake just falls apart. But if you wait too long, the cake expands too far and it's hard to get it out of the pan. Same thing in injection molding. When you think about it, you're shooting in a liquid and you're letting it solidify to a certain point. So if you don't account for the force that it's going in there with, it may not fill up the mold correctly. If the pin's not in the right timing, then the void might close. Also, when you inject the part out, if it's not cooled enough, you might deform the plastic a little bit. And so those are things that are a strong consideration when you're kind of dialing in the tooling. So in the video, that's what he's talking about. And I think we can go ahead and play that now. So
Okay. Yeah, we can run that real quick.
Hey Rob, so just make a little video to show. Yeah, I mean they look great. The detail looks great. Most of everything's fitting very well. You can see there's a little deformation here where this is being stretched when they pull it out of the mold. So they're gonna have to make an adjustment there. This knee can kind of come dislodged a little bit, and I think that it may not be perfectly straight. Like this may have more, looks like it has more deformation on the right thigh. Left thigh looks pretty normal where the knee connects. It also doesn't come out dislodged like that. The knee pins are a bit loose, and a little bit loose this way, a little looser on this one, but also a little loose on the joint axis. I mean, honestly, there are products that ship with joints that are looser than that, but I think that we'll definitely want to tighten it up. This joint here feels really good. The ankle also really tight, really nice and good. The toes, very nice, feel really good too. I think the ankle and the foot and the toes all feel really nice. I mean this joint here, really nice and tight. The hip joint, a little bit loose. That's typical. I mean, the hip joints are always the hardest thing to get tight. This new joint on the leg, the knee, obviously some learning curve on that one. So but honestly, I don't think it's nothing major. Just a little bit, just making the holes smaller, and then adding some detents on the discs so that they catch more friction when you articulate the discs, as well as there's more friction holding the pins. Like I said, right now you can actually pull this out with a bit of effort.
Wow, awesome. Very nice. Yep, exactly as Renato said, those were some beautiful legs for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Rob. And actually, it brings me a question. Now, you've progressed in this journey with the figures and stuff. What is something that you learned, with these action figures that, kind of would go, over, the consumer's head, kind of something that, people wouldn't really think about, that you've learned through this journey?
I think some of the modifications to the tooling that happen after they're already made. They actually go in with hand tools and make little. There's two different ways about it. You can send the tooling plate back, and basically it gets scrapped, and they make another one with the adjustments. And then sometimes they're actually literally going in with hand tools and making little small adjustments in the tooling plate.
Wow.
Really interesting stuff. And so there's like a back and forth, because if they think about it, like when you make a little change, well, then you got to go back, you got to put it on the machine, you got to test it again to make sure that you got it the way you wanted it. And so that's the back and forth process. And so they're doing this usually at the end of the day, when they're done doing a run on actual figures that are dialed in. And so it's not just your figure they're working on. They're working on several different projects. And so that's why it kind of just puts out the time frame from that standpoint.
Interesting. Now, according to how much modification is needed, is that what you mean? They might scrap the whole plate and versus, just kind of going in and chiseling a little off here and there?
Right. And so if you think about it, like sometimes you're talking about less than a millimeter's worth of depth or something, a fraction of a fraction that you need to adjust something. And that doesn't really warrant tooling. It's not going to change that. In fact, you might find out that you got it too tight, and now you got to go and take some material out. Also, there's certain things like the finish, like how well it's polished and things like that can influence the material as well, which is really interesting. And that's something that comes out of other manufacturing, like metal and furniture and whatnot like that. So
super cool to hear more detail into the process and just understand everything that's involved in production. It's pretty staggering.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you have to remember that humidity and things like that are a factor. So depending on what time of year that you do something can also play into it. And so you could have the tooling completely dialed in and do it an entirely different, like on a really hot day, and get a different result. So little interesting factors that people don't think. It's as much art as it is science. So
yeah. And I'm sure factory location probably plays into that, because we're hearing more factories coming up in Malaysia, which I'd imagine it's a lot more humid there. So I'm sure that affects things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know they get probably whenever there's like power outages too, because I know that they face those quite often in China and stuff. Does that mess up I guess it probably would if there's something being injected at the time and they lose power. Does that count against you, or is that just kind of one of the factory, cost of doing business?
That's just the cost of doing business. No, I mean, if I want changes, then yeah, that costs me. But little things like that, like the support should have gone in there, whatnot. They're not, they don't. Generally, they're not trying to nickel and dime you for anything. So it's just the time is the most precious resource, and that's what gets pushed. And so if you keep getting pushed, the problem is the factory needs to produce figures as well. That's how they make money. So you might lose your slot, and that puts you out, a good month or something to that effect. That's the hardest
right
part.
Yeah.
Right.
Or coming up against Chinese New Year, because I know they all take a long break for that. So it's always
like most people realize, like Chinese New Year is not just the next day or no one goes to work. Like a lot of people work very far from their family, so they'll stop working like 3 or 4 days. So the factory's actually going in a decline like the week before, even that, and then it takes them a whole nother week on top of the whole. I don't know, was it like 3 weeks or something, 4 weeks of that? And so it's sort of interesting. It's a pretty cool holiday, and from that aspect. But you also, big thing about Chinese New Year that factories don't, or people in the United States don't talk about, is sometimes people don't come back. They just decide they're going to stay this year, right? And so some of the staff at the factory are very high skilled labor, like especially with paint like that. They're not just replaceable. They're not cogs. So that can put them in a strong position as well. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, and it's good to remember that there's people and culture behind this whole production process that takes place in another country. It's not just a rote system of you're sending something out, A, B, and C get done, and then it comes back in a certain amount of time. So definitely appreciate learning more about that as well.
Right. Renato had asked if they scrap a tooling plate and redo it, is that more cost to you? I feel like that was kind of Yeah.
Yeah. If I wanted something drastically changed, then yeah, it would be more cost to me. But no.
Right. And I do apologize for my blinking light, guys. I'm using the built-in camera, so I'm currently trying to hook up my new camera, so I will have that fixed. But bear with me for the meantime. But that's awesome. That is very cool seeing behind the scenes. Basically, also seeing some of the articulation and how the figure is going to be. So you talked about how wave one is pushed back a little bit. And it'll just be a little bit late, Rob. So explain to us a little bit now. We are currently in a pre-sale of wave one, correct?
Correct. And I put that up on the FAQ page to answer some questions, and I was a little late switching over on the website because we wanted to put all this information out at sort of the same time. And it's, what is a pre-sale versus a pre-order? It's not some new gimmick, but it's a great question because in a pre-sale, the stock is limited. And you're like, well, if it's pre, why is it limited? And the concept's pretty simple. In a pre-order, if you think about it, if it's truly a pre-order, there shouldn't be a limit on how much you can order. The whole idea is that a pre-order lets you order as much as you want to determine the demand curve. In a pre-sale, we've already put in the numbers at the factory on how much that we are going to produce, and they've already started on that. And so not to give away too much, but we actually have a factory in the United States that's a part of this, and they've already started. So we can't change the quantities that we needed. And when we were going through that, you'll notice that like on BBTS, this slate figure is already sold out. And on our website, it's already sold out. And the reason for that is that we just don't have a lot of extra stock after we put in our order about 4 weeks ago. And it's a good thing, but it's also one of those things that people don't understand is, yes, sometimes you can change the quantity of your order depending on what's going on at the factory. But the fact that we use 2 different factories, we actually have components that are being shipped from the United States to China, which seems a little backwards, but that's what needed to be done in order to ensure the integrity and security of certain things. So not to give away anything, it's not that nefarious at all. It's just, we don't want to talk about it just yet. But having said all that, it's simply that we can't change the production numbers. So a pre-sale basically means that we're putting a limited amount of our stock available for pre-order or pre-sale rather until we get everything in stock. And that's all it really means. So that's why it's limited.
Gotcha. So the numbers are already in. You're selling what's still available as far as what's been ordered.
Correct.
Right.
Because we have to set certain stock aside to go to conventions. So we plan out our conventions. We know that we're going to take like 1 case of each figure to every convention for the next, 8 conventions or whatever. So we need, 400 or 500, figures available for that. Because no one, you don't want to go a year of conventions and not have any figures to sell. That kind of,
Very true.
that sucks. It's great to meet everybody, but we also know that everybody wants to also kind of come and see stuff in person. And we get it. Like there's only so many 3D renders and paint masters you can look at. And when you see the figures in person, you don't get a good feel for them. And that's completely legitimate, right?
Very true. Now, as far as in stock goes, is that something that is something that'll just kind of leach over from the pre-sale, or is it something that you will kind of have on the site after kind of shows start to slow down a little bit, or
so exactly? There's also this philosophy that I have that I wish more companies would adopt. And so, we have sort of the 3 stages, right? We have the pre-order, we have the pre-sale, then we have in stock. And, I mentioned it, I talked about it in the past, that when we get to the in stock phase, like the prices will increase based on the figures. So if you're handing your money over to a company to help, with the pre-order, it's 2 things. 1, you're guaranteeing that you get the product so it doesn't sell out. And 2, I think you should be getting a discount, much in the same way that you get a discount on Kickstarter, or at least some providers give you a discount, for helping them back their Kickstarter. It's the same concept. If you're going to pre-order with me, I'm going to give you a discount, because otherwise you could just save your money, put it in the bank and collect interest on it or invest it, whatever, and, make more money. So it just makes sense to me that if someone, a fan or a customer, is willing to give you their money for a short duration, they should get something in return besides just getting the product. And so, yeah, prices will increase slightly in the in-stock sale. I think that's only fair because everyone, quote unquote, takes a risk of, buying in at this phase, and they don't know that they're actually going to really like the figure. So if you think about it, why do we have YouTube reviewers? Because they review a figure and you go and watch the video and you figure out whether or not you want to buy it. Well, if you pre-order something, you're kind of taking on that risk that you may or may not like it. And so, as you guys know, and I know, a lot of people on the Kickstarter didn't go all in. They wanted to support the Kickstarter because they really liked the idea of the project, but there's been plenty of projects that didn't come to fruition. People got burned, whatever, or they end up getting a product that wasn't up to the quality that was promised to them. And so they want to support something, but they don't want to invest a whole lot of money. And I completely get that and respect that. So, but for the people that do, we want to make sure that we treat them right.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that approach. I know over the last 7 years or so of collecting, probably a little longer, I'm getting more bothered by having to give up my money for so long. And so I've really backed off the pre-order model where you're paying in advance. I've backed way off of Kickstarters, Savage Crucible being the exception. But, just with these long, we're all collectors too. So we get frustrated when something is delayed or, it takes a long time or whatever. And often Kickstarters, some of them are taking up to 2 years. And so sometimes by the time an item or a group of items get delivered, 2 years later, I'm a different person. I don't want that anymore. And so I've really backed off that model and just kind of waiting to see what's in stock, if I'm going to like it in that moment. And, obviously with inflation and more things competing like groceries for our money, I don't want to give up my money that easily. So definitely appreciate that approach.
And to add on to what Nikki was saying too, there's a lot of up and coming toy companies, indie companies too, that, are coming out and, they're coming out with cool stuff. And it just makes it harder and harder, so it definitely has become a pick and choose game for me as well. Slowing down on certain things, cutting off others. And, it's like you said, money is a little more frugal now as we progress. So, but with that being said, and how Wave 1 is progressing, Rob, where does that kind of leave us with Wave 2? How can people expect a pre-order on that? How is that going to go about?
So, I think I've talked about this before, but we're not going to have the pre-orders. Big hole in our shell. We're not going to have the pre-orders for Wave 2 until everyone from the Kickstarter gets their Wave 1 in hand till that ships. And I just feel like that's fair. Does it slow down Wave 2 a little bit? It does in one sense, and that it slows down the pre-order window. We're still moving into tooling about December for Wave 2. And some of the lessons, not all, but some of the lessons from the Wave 1 tooling will be applied to the Wave 2 tooling. And so that'll help with that. But yes, it will delay the pre-order window for Wave 2 until after Wave 1 ships. And in the future, going forward, the most that we ever hope to have under a pre-order window is 2 waves. I think that's legitimate because I think that, I don't ever want to hold someone's money for 12 months. I'd much rather it be always shorter than 12 months, but that's like the maximum I'm willing to with delays and things like that. So I could see a scenario where you have 2 waves or 2 different purchase windows that are under pre-order under that scenario, but that would have to be the maximum. I don't feel comfortable. I think it's a little overwhelming. And it goes back to Nikki saying that you might be a different person. You may not like the product. You don't want to feel the same amount of pressure to put up too much money in this, over a longer period of time. So,
right. And with that, where was I going? I had a good question and it escaped me.
I'll answer Chris's question in the meantime. So there's a slight gap in this shelf, and that is in an effort to sort of make room for a HISS tank when it comes. I really don't know where I'm going to put that thing, but that is maybe here. I'm going to probably have to adjust the shelves.
I don't know. Is that enough space? I don't know.
Yeah, not at all.
I was gonna say that.
There's just a few figures there that are kind of just taking up the slot until that thing arrives.
Wow.
Speaking of giving up our money for a while.
I'm actually jealous. I wish I got to his tank, but it's okay. I'm not going to complain too much. Rob, I was going to say with the waves, and the motto is still you're going to keep them fairly small, right? With as far as characters.
Yes, and so moving past wave 3, the idea is to reduce the number of SKUs or characters, figures, however you want to describe it, down to 3 or 4 per wave. It does a couple of things. One, it makes it much easier on the factory to get things out. 2, I also think it's a price point issue. It goes back to overwhelming the fans in terms of how much they want to buy, how much they can buy. I don't want to overwhelm people. I mean, we're all G.I. Joe collectors right here, and we all feel like, I mean, every day I feel like there's figures showing up at my house, Joe's, and I'm like, what? You know, it's just it's like an onslaught. So I don't really want that. I think Action Force has a really nice cadence to how they do things. It's something really admirable about that. Like you can buy everything. Let's put it that way. Like I feel like that's a really great cadence. I think they're doing a really good job over there with that. So just comparing like a totally different genre in 2 different ways. That small indie companies doing it and large corporations doing it, and so that's where I want to be. So it makes it more manageable at the factory. You can get out figures more consistently, and it also gives us a chance. I want to put out the best figures possible, and the fewer figures that you have in a wave, the more that you can focus on them and make sure that they have little details or parts that make them way more compelling as characters and an offering. And I think that's really important if you're going to be successful at this.
Right.
Yeah, and some folks brought up a good point of space for collectors is always a concern because very rarely are we collecting one line, and so I suppose in the initial phase of world building, people are really hungry for a lot of figures to fill up that space, but having the idea of a certain cadence, like you mentioned, and just being able to really appreciate those 4 characters or however many, 3 or 4 or 5 that are coming out instead of just buying stuff to fill up a space. I like the idea of that.
Another nice thing too with the wave being a little bit smaller is that it makes it easier for me as a collector to kind of go in and get seconds. Whereas, if there's a lot of compelling characters, sometimes I might tend to be like, oh, I really want the characters and try to kind of go for all those. But it's nice to have a smaller wave and then just be like, oh, I can get another one of these ones to do something different and all that. So I appreciate that aspect of it as well. So, but with that, what does that mean for figures as far as being reissued or like a second run? Is that something that we will see with Crucible?
No, there will not be quote second runs, and to define that for everybody, a second run meaning that you put out the same exact figures and the same decos, you just do another run. The idea being that we're new, and in the future that we would have a larger fan base, and they would want to purchase these first 3 waves of figures that they didn't get the opportunity to. And so, no, I won't be doing a second run. Will I ever, do another Nin or a Como or another Royal Guard or something of that nature? Sure. I don't see a reason why not, but it would definitely be a different paint deco and probably different accessories and pieces and things of that nature. And if it's a non-character, probably a different head, things like that. And so you would have your chance at more Royal Guards, but they would be different Royal Guards. And so that's just my philosophy on it as a collector. I understand why other companies do it. It makes perfect sense for them. But for me as a collector, I don't want to do that. Look, at the end of the day, we collect things for nostalgia. We collect things because they're cool and we like collecting. And we all like the idea that that our stuff either maintains its value as a collector or increases in value as a collector. And, picking on Hasbro a little bit, I'm willing to pay $25 for a Crimson Guard and see someone get it for $5 is okay. But if I buy a Python Patrol figure, that's just a repaint, and I paid full price for it, and 2 weeks later it's in the bargain bin for $5, I'm not thrilled about that. That doesn't make me feel good at all. What do we all do? We're like, I'll just wait for it to go on clearance, right? That's what you're going to do. And that is a horrible situation, because at the end of the day, we all know that if we all wait for it to go on clearance, it will go on clearance. And then suddenly Hasbro's like, well, this line's dying. We're not going to, keep funding it or whatever, keep putting the same kind of resources into it. No ollies. Yeah, I know. I have an ollies less than a half a mile from here.
I have no ollies here, so I'm jealous of everybody posting their $5 purchases.
I was actually at my buddy Lou's house yesterday, and it was kind of creepy at first, but turned out to be really well for us. We went into Ollie's, they didn't have anything, and then we walk out, and then this guy that works there follows us outside, and he's like, "Hey, are you guys real toy collectors?" And I'm like, is this guy gonna pop open the trunk, try to sell us some toys? I don't know what's going on here, But we're like, yeah, we collect toys and stuff. And he's like, well, I got some unopened boxes of it was Arana, the Crimson Guard, and Dusty. And he's like, I got some if you guys want. And we're like, are you kidding me, man? Let's go. I was like, this worked out real well. We're like, sorry, we thought you were kind of gonna be a creeper, but it worked out. It was great.
I'm just going to show up at Target and sell all my unwanted inbox figures to the collectors that come out.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah. Have a little stand, Nikki.
Right? I got to show you something, extra sketchy. Yeah.
Just don't go with the trench coat approach, because
no trench coat. Yeah, I was just about to say. Oh, yeah, and I got to thank Renato for he popped my Joe cherry pretty hard. He sent me a bunch of figures, so now I'm in the game too. I'm in that rabbit hole. So we had a good question here earlier. Let's see. Here we are. So it says, after wave 3 ships, how many waves would you want to do a year?
So there's different ways to interpret what a wave is, right? And so I think at the end of the day, you're asking, how many characters do I want to put out in a year? I think the absolute maximum, this is not what I want to do. I'm saying that this is what the market could bear. I think that you could put out 24 figures in a 12-month period if you put out 2 figures per month. That would be an intense schedule from my perspective. But at our price point, that is reasonable because it's less than $100 a month. I think that it would still be an intense schedule to keep. So I think realistically around 16 figures roughly is the right amount for a year. And I just come up with that on a 4x4 schedule, thinking every 3 months doing 4 figures. That sort of thing is where you come up with that number. Will it ever be exact like that? No. Some waves might have 5 SKUs. Some waves may only have 1 SKU. So because that SKU's a little bit bigger or has more in it, this is the safest thing I can say at this point.
Right. Very nice. I believe this week also you showed us a new reveal of what seems to be like a barbarian. Can we bring that up and talk about that, or what?
Sure. You can bring it up. We can see it. I don't know how much I want to talk about it. But.
Cool. Let's check this out. Here, I'll do a share screen so it works a little better. There we go.
Yep. So this is something that Kevin and I were working on together. This is the sort of the second figure that I helped design from scratch, and Kevin did a great job with it. He filled in some great blanks for us, and also came up with his own flavor to it, like he always does. And Nikki knows, and a lot of other people know that. I don't think there's ever like one single character that comes out of one person's mind. It's definitely a group effort. And I think that that's one of the great things about our team is everyone gets to voice opinions, and little things really add up and make a figure really great. And so what this is an example of is using old tooling and mixing in new tooling. And so, I've been very vocal about not overusing tooling or sculpts too soon. It doesn't mean that I don't want to reuse tooling. It just means that I think that can be done in an effective manner as long as you're willing to invest properly in the beginning. And so this is Jaeger's pants. It's the human torso and arms, and then everything else is sort of a new part to it. And Nikki's seen this. I think it still has too. But we fooled around with some of chainmail arms and things like that, and we'll show that later on a different show or maybe in the coming months. But the issue you have when you start having butterflies and you start using different like asymmetrical arms is the butterfly on the back side doesn't match what the arm is. And so what you have to do is you either have to sculpt it to where in the shoulder it's part of its flesh and part of its chainmail, so it makes sense that it doesn't come out that way. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at. But this is a really fun character. I love him to death. I think he looks pretty menacing. I haven't named him yet. We've been working on some ideas, and I like it. I really appreciate on Facebook we had a lot of feedback on the character, a lot of constructive feedback, and really appreciate that. It is helpful to hear other people's point of view. I don't comment on every one of them or address them, but we do read them and we do take them to heart in terms of what we're going for and what their point is. And some of the points will be integrated maybe in a different figure or a different look. So, but this is by no means the final on anything, but just wanted to give you guys a tease and, because we're not announcing the lineup for Wave 4 for quite a while, but we'll continue to show a lot of the figures that we have locked and loaded and ready to go.
Very nice. Nikki, what are your thoughts on this character?
Oh man. Initial thought is that I can't wait to see Nashorn and Human and some of the other barbarians from Wave 2 a little bit further along in the production process, because I'm imagining this character on that shelf with them.
Right.
And just building out that world a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, I think I really like this guy. He's got this wasteland look to him, and it's just, to me, it's just so fitting in the Crucible. He just looks like he's just, just the survivor, just anything goes. Even we don't know anything really about him, he definitely has a lot of character. So definitely an awesome concept here. So let's see. We had a question here. It says, "Are those spikes going to draw blood?" That depends to the person playing with it, I guess.
No. That's a reference to some MAFC parts that the sculpt Lee's on the call. Yep. Lee's group as well. But those polygons that he did that were quite painful. Yeah, that's well, at least I think that's what Renato's were.
Yeah.
So they do tend to, from the factory, they do tend to make sure that parts are not quite as sharp. Like this, here's a great example. This one's, if you stepped on this, it would hurt, but it's, pressing pretty hard. It's not going to draw blood. So that's fair.
One of the cool things about having had MAFC over the years is that a lot of the customizers at least have gotten a chance to really get to know the artist through their sculpts and their style. And so now when I see a composition like that from Kevin, it's like, you look for those, some of those design cues and appreciate it. So that's awesome.
It is. It really is. And they all have different styles, whether it's Nick or Kevin or Lee or even Gordon stuff, Arlen. All those guys have different styles, and it is unique to have that many sculptors and it worked really well. So from that standpoint, I really enjoy it. I'm hope to be able to show some of Lee's crazy stuff. And I know he's on the call, but that's me bullying him basically.
I can't wait for that stuff.
Yeah,
it's nice. We definitely have a nice buffet, I would like to say, and all the chefs chefing it up are doing a nice job. So we're definitely keep it coming. Well, actually, and speaking of My Action Figure Customs, I did see there was a question here. I mean, we'll bring it up. We don't know here, but for My Action Figure Customs and Savage Crucible, I think there's another, enjoy the figures. Maybe, there's the character packs coming out. So I think a lot of people are going to be occupied for quite some time. If you want to fill in a little, Rob, you can.
I mean, I think Hulk 88 also has a question. He's basically they're getting to the same thing. What is the future of MAFC? And it's a great question. I had some AWOC parts that I didn't put out, and that was mostly because I just don't have the time. If you guys think about it, I do have a career, and I go to these conventions. Yeah, right.
Come on.
Yeah.
Excuses.
We go to these conventions. It's, if you think about Dallas, it's a 3-day show. Well, it's 3 days at the show. It's literally 5 days for me. I have all these calls. I have calls with Hong Kong on the production. I have calls and messages from the artists. We do this podcast where we have to do, prep for it and things like that. So all of this takes a lot of time in addition to that. And it's hard for me to justify putting a lot of effort into MAFC right now. We're still looking at models where, I have like 30 printers, and we're talking about, well, maybe we'll just send some out to the group, and the guys can sculpt pieces and print them themselves and sell them and that kind of thing. And I've alluded to it before. I'm not against any other third-party company, at least mom and pop third-party printer, putting out parts. That's what I did. I don't have a problem with that. So I hope that continues, and I hope that customizers are still creative, and that's why we wanted a lot of the parts to be, pop and swap. And I'm not saying that we won't put out parts. I'm just saying that is not on my radar. You guys have no idea how crazy I can be when it comes to detail and planning out things. So, we actually have a layout on how you're supposed to pack the all-in box, and we've collated orders to ensure the fastest way that we can pack them based on best practices. So there's
to hear.
A lot of detail to making sure your boxed figures are looking prestige.
You guys have no idea. Yeah, I'm sitting here going, "What does Jaeger smell like?"
In there, nice and cozy.
Put a smell in the box that everyone opens and goes, "Yeah, that's Savage Crucible."
So what I'm hearing is it's not a priority given the attention that you're giving the Savage Crucible line at this moment.
Right.
No, it's not.
Exactly. And let's see. Renato had asked, are there going to be any deluxe type figures where it's deluxe based on size or amount of accessories?
Yes, there will be deluxe characters. I think we've talked about this before. My personal feeling is that everyone's trying to go big in terms of size, and I think that's the wrong approach. I'm a contrarian, so if look, everybody's pouring the money into housing, I'm going the opposite direction. And it's served me very well over the years. So will we have bigger figures? Yes. Are we going to overproduce bigger figures? No. Will we have deluxe figures in terms of having some figures having more parts and or more stuff in a box? Yes, very much so. And there's different ways that you can go about that in terms of a 2-pack or two things look really great together. Obviously, I'm being cute because I know what I'm talking about right now, but don't want to. There's going to be some great stuff in 24 for reveal wise that you guys are going to freak out over. So
Nice.
I'm looking forward to it.
I have a question for you, Rob. Have you, or is there a possibility in the future of doing any type? Now, I know you said you're pretty much done with the Kickstarter. You know, that was kind of to initiate, you know, the toy line and all that. But are there any future plans, or you know, have you thought about doing some type of crowd-funded, either figure or type of creature that is, you know, let's say like a big thing, like let's say like how Hash Lab is, for example, something that's a bigger scale that, you know, you would need, you know, X amount of backers for.
You never say never. This is always a possibility. I would say from that standpoint, there are a couple of things I can think of off the top of my head that would be really exciting to try. There's all the creators talk about this, and they talk about, you know, most people don't really talk about the fees that Kickstarter collects, the processing fees, all of that, and it is pretty substantial, especially the more successful you are, because they don't cap it, right? And that's a 10% going out the door is a big deal in terms of your margin going out the door. So that's one thing. But on the flip side, Kickstarter does bring in people that normally wouldn't be backing your stuff. And if you think about the amount of information that's out there just from different toy companies that you get inundated with that you don't pick up on, because, you know, we don't want to be sold to constantly. We want to just enjoy stuff. So all of us at this point have all tuned out Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and we catch glimpses of stuff. But, you know, we're not opening emails from every company that says, oh, this pre-order this or whatever that. And that's perfectly natural. So yeah, there's some cool stuff that I would like to explore at one point. It won't be next year by any stretch. Not until we got wave 3. And if we have some more ambitious things, we can go that route. But in terms of just putting out figures or slightly larger figures, no, it would have to be something pretty damn cool to warrant Kickstarter type of intention.
Pretty goddamn savage, I think, is what you meant to say.
Well, I think Renato's armored llama idea is pretty goddamn savage. So
armored llama.
If it must spit acid though, in the Savage Crucible, it's spit.
Those bastards are spitters. So
did anyone ever put out a llama with Conan? Because he had the camel, you know, like. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, did anyone ever do that? I don't think anyone's ever done that. Yeah.
Crowdfund idea number 1. No, it's like, oh man. We have let's see, Christopher here. He's saying he's hoping for a Tiger Warrior someday. I think that'll you see that sooner than later.
I think that's the most requested guy from the comic, I think.
Well, speaking of comic 2, any updates as far as volume 2 coming out?
Yeah, I just talked to Rubus this week, and I think Monday or Tuesday I told him to let me sleep on something, and I haven't gotten back to him. So that tells you how great I am sometimes. No, we were discussing whether or not to move forward with the graphic novel number 2 or to put out the smaller comic books. And that was something I wanted to take 24 hours to think about, instead of taking 96 hours to think about. And yeah, I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. Would you rather just have closer to individual comics on a semi-monthly basis, or do you like the graphic novel format? I personally like the graphic novel format. I like sort of conclusion to stories. I don't know that everyone likes the idea of waiting month to month, or, you know, every 2 months for a story.
Right. Yeah, I like it. I like it when the story has a good ending but leaves some things open, kind of how the first graphic novel did.
No, we don't have good endings, sir. That's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, Yeah, touche. Yeah. But I'm also a big fan of how
Conclusion.
Dark Horse was doing like their Alien vs Predator series, where they would have certain stories that are long, some that were kind of short, and you kind of had like a little bit of variety in that aspect. But I mean, I'll take anything. I'm in love with the lore, so anything you throw at me, I'll consume.
That's a good point, Stella. I also am a Predator comic aficionado, and I did appreciate the combo of storytelling there, of like short stories where you know it's over versus like
Hmm.
several volume story where you're
Oh
eager to
yeah,
know what comes next. So
yeah, exactly. So very nice, cool guys. Is let's see, we had a question here. Is it a way to buy Volume 1 comic?
The graphic novel is available at conventions.
Currently
so,
at the convention. So
Yep.
if you have a buddy that can pick one up for you or something, definitely arrange something like that. It's a very cool read. And then Rubus, I believe, also added a little extra, things at the end of that, a little more drawings and stuff. So he made it a little extra for people that picked up a physical copy. So if you come across it, definitely pick it up. It's a great read. And with that, Rob, I believe it kind of caps up on whatever updates we had so far. Is there anything that you would like to add as far as closing or?
Now I'm looking forward to everybody that comes out to Dallas Fan Festival. It'll be me, Matt O'Toole, and Guillermo. So please come out to that. I think following that, we'll be in Maryland. It'll be me, Chris Williams, and Renato. And then we're heading to Detroit for the Motor City Comic Con the following weekend. That's going to be me and Tim. And then in a couple weeks after that, we'll be at LA. That's going to be me, Nikki. I think Matt's coming to that one. If there's any fans in LA that might want to work the booth, let us know. There's some sweet stuff in it for you. Don't tell anybody Renato and Guillermo what you guys are getting.
Yeah, right.
All right. And I'll get like 100,000 freaking emails.
You will be downgraded, guys, if you do. No.
Yes, definitely come out to LA and hang out. Looking forward to it. Definitely. It's been a while since I've been.
Well, each show we're going to have more and more stuff to show people. So, if you came to last year, you actually got to see some painted factory samples. Hopefully at Dallas, you'll get to see some of those parts that we've shown pictures of. Hopefully I'll have those in hand. And so, we may or may not have a full test shot at Dallas, but by the time you get to LA, you're going to start seeing the actually factory approved final painted samples of figures. So, it should be pretty neat to see that, and I hope so. I guess we should just give everybody 60 seconds to blitzkrieg some questions.
Yeah, shoot out. I was just about to say that. If anybody has any questions or something they want to hear us go over again, definitely let us know in the comments.
And we are actively trying to make the show under an hour or less, because we realize that not everyone has an intense amount of time to listen for little tidbits that we might drop over 2.5 hours. It's not a whole lot of fun.
Right.
So that's Savage Socks. Okay. Danes. Oh, that's a good question. It's on the list of things that I want to do. I mean, Arlen's already sculpted the Dane, so it's on there. It's just in terms of, we don't want to show all our cards before we get to wave 4. And so we're also, the reason why we're not doing that, it's not just wanting to show all our cards, it's also being flexible to the market and what everybody wants. And we could, by the time we get to that point, the world could have changed, and especially on what people want are their collecting habits. And so we take every bit of information that we receive and use that to try to put out the best product that we can. So,
and if a company has put out, a really amazing boar mount, for example, it's like, okay, well, we're not going to do that.
Right.
It's like it's been done. So that's another reason to kind of hold it back. And I think it's good to not, let people the line needs to prove itself first, right? So
Exactly.
wave one needs to be in people's hands, so they can see how awesome they are, and then go from there.
Exactly.
It's very nice.
I thought we agreed to ban Tim. Why is he still getting his messages through? I don't understand.
I know, right? I guess it didn't work. I think he's using a different alias here. Actually, one thing that came to mind, Rob, that people may not have noticed when we posted about it, but at PowerCon we introduced a new character there. Do you want to give the little bit of information that exists on that?
Well, I mean, he's a new race. It's a great character. That's another one that it was Kevin sculpted, that Tim and Nikki and myself had some input on, and I think he's a fantastic character. I think he's really interesting, and I know that Rubus and the guys can't wait to get him in the graphic novel. And
Right.
But a newer race, he's more dwarf size than full size, and so just another example of us, trying to expand the races and the characters in there. So.
And you're referring to which character?
Oh, Nezgrel the Delver.
Nezgrel the Delver.
So lots of pictures that were posted over PowerCon weekend of him. Yeah,
so definitely go to the Facebook page and look and see if you didn't see him. Definitely go search for him and check him out. And unfortunately, PowerCon I believe got canceled for next year, so you guys won't be able to see Tim cosplay him yet. But he will be. Rob's like, damn it, why you ruin it? Well, we'll go pull the pictures then for whoever hasn't seen it. That's to get him back for all the Kleenex jokes that he was hitting me with this whole time. Dirty bastard. We have here we go. We got a couple more questions came in here. Any updates on the throne? That's a good question. I mean,
so Lee's finished sculpting that. It's with Kevin right now on some fit, and I'm not really worried about that until we get closer to wave 3. There's I've talked about this before, in my delusional state of agreeing to do that, to releasing that, I didn't think it through. And so the waist piece on the Harbinger doesn't make it easy for him to sit in a throne. And so we've come up with some ideas. I think Lee had a really great idea, like in the throne, including a waist piece that you can 3D print where the cloth is only on the front. You just put it on the figure and it makes it much easier for him to sit. And so those are some little nuanced things that I'm, it will get done, but it's not on the get it done in 23 list. And is that Lee asking for Warlock figures? As soon as you finished the most recent sculpt that you said that you were going to work on and told me to leave it with you, you can sculpt a Warlock figure. That was a really good movie, though. That was really, talk about like a film that brings in some lore and some ideas that were kind of fresh and new. That was a really cool movie.
I think you're getting outbid here, Tim. Sorry. There was another question here. If there's any information on the card art, do we need to rewatch the stream to see what I missed? No, definitely no rewatching. There was no information given on that.
I've given all I'm going to give on that until said event, and I hope you guys enjoy the art. The art's fantastic. Ruby did a great job. Gordon did a great job, and so did I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this name correctly. Grigorios. I'm sorry if I messed that up. I'll practice my Greek still. You'll have to teach me that name later. And because I know I butchered it. So, and then we'll talk about that more when it gets time for release. But I think you guys are going to enjoy the next 14 weeks. I think that's how long there's going to be. Yeah, something like that. 13, 14 weeks, something like that.
Let's see here. We have another question here. Female figures, series 4 or 5. I mean, they're coming.
That's a great question. It really is. And there's, we have a lot of internal discussion about that. it kind of gives me indigestion a little bit sometimes too. Because look, as a creator, you want everything now. Like
Yesterday.
and you want everything now. I want everything now, but it's like, I think people, I don't want to say don't appreciate, but I think that they don't realize like how much in the first 3 waves in terms of like body types, and even if you add the dwarfs to wave 4, like in terms of just the different types of bodies and bucks that they have, and we'll keep doing that. The female is unique in that I really, really want to get that right. And
Rob, it's almost impossible to quote unquote get that right in a sense, because if you look at any female figures that have been released in the last 10 years, there are no other figures that collectors are more critical of than the exact specs of the female figure. And
it's
they
weird.
want something different, and they will argue their point adamantly. So it's really hard to get those quote unquote right. And it's going to invite a lot of opinions, probably more opinions than anything else has ever invited. So
right. And
consider.
Yeah, and we talked about this. I really would personally, I'd rather have females of different heights and slightly varying body types, and that's a very, very, we do ambitious here, obviously. So, but that's a very ambitious project. And then, to be quite frank, sometimes sculptors aren't the most excited about sculpting a female body. They like females, but they also don't want their wife looking over their shoulder, wondering what the hell they're doing. Like, there's some concepts that people just don't think of on a daily basis when you talk about it. So, like it's, Stell doesn't want his pregnant wife looking over his shoulder.
Right.
Looking at,
It's like, where does it go from personal preference to creative? Very true. It is challenging, when it comes to that. And like Rob said, we definitely want to give it some good thought, and take our time with it. Not to the point where we're far out with that, but we want to do it right. So
there's some really cool questions in here. Let's see. No PowerCon, or what's this one?
Yeah. So with you looking for PowerCon won't happen until 2025, does that affect your con dates for this year? Or maybe, the following year?
So that would be August. Yeah, I mean, we already have a con for that August. We're not ready to announce that because they're not ready to announce the date. So that's why. But yes, we are very forward thinking in our cons. And that's sort of unique. Is like some conventions do things like 12 months out, and some conventions like you have to sign up like 2 months before. Huge difference. And then like some are like sign up 6 months before, but we're not going to tell you whether you got in until 8 weeks before. And that's because they're like what they call curating, where they're picking the vendors because they want different things and they don't want it just to be either all toys or all comic books or whatever, right? And so then part of that gets back into like, okay, what fits my schedule? What fits these guys' schedule? Because obviously I need help. And, we look at it from a geographic standpoint. And if you ever meet me in person or know some of the links I go to, I actually have dry time naps that plot out all the cities that we've been to. And so like in the first 2 years, I'm trying to maximize that coverage in terms of population density and things of that nature. And so we'll see.
Nice. Let's see. We have another question here. Has the next Frazetta figure been chosen?
Has the next Frazetta figure been chosen? So the next the one that's going to be released has not been chosen. There have been 4 sculpted. No, 3 sculpted, 1 in process. That's all I can say.
So coming soon, guys. Like we said, we got stuff lined up. Let's see here. We had another question. Where to go?
Yes, trying to hit all areas of the country for cons.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very much so. So, Emerald City, definitely want to check that out. Want to go to that convention. We're going to go back to Chicago, Kane County. It's a different kind of show. I think someone asked about Georgia. I mean, we're doing Joe Fest in Augusta. Yes, we will be at Toylanta. There's not a place that I won't go, guys. That's whether it's big or small. I don't have an ego about that because I want to go to where the fans are, where people collect the toys, and I realize that everyone has families and commitments, and they can't go to their side of the country. It's much easier for me as a person to pack up a truck or ship out stuff and go see everybody else, than everybody come to me. And that's the way it should be, personally. So yeah, we're definitely. I mean, in Texas, it's my personal prerogative that we have to at least hit Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, and Austin. So yeah, and just in terms of California, LA Comic Con's not enough. We've got to go someplace farther north. Sometimes I think California people.
It's really 2 states, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
States, right.
Maybe 3, arguably, but definitely 2.
Right.
Well, I think people forget just how, or don't realize, if you put California on the East Coast, it would be like 8 states.
It would. It's true.
Right. Yeah. So just
very long.
It's not enough. It's like Texas. Texas is huge. So
right.
Right. So
any Komodo dragons for Lemurians, since the humans are getting canines from Ronaldo?
Man, I definitely. So I guess Renato saw this in the background. I'm not really sure. I love companion animals. I think they're awesome to do. This is a McFarlane one. Really great. Limited articulate. I just now recently learned that the feet are actually have a joint there. Never realized that. Don't even know why it's there personally. Maybe it's easier to put together that way. I love those kinds of things. I think they're great. I think they add a lot to a display, a lot of character. Croc Master with Fiona is fantastic. That's just a great example of companion stuff that I think is really important. So
Definitely.
Let's see. Gonna do a show exclusive figure or item. So that's a good question.
And just like we have as we introduced in the Kickstarter, the conclusive, yes, we will have figures that we only sell at conventions. However, they will not be sold just at one convention, i.e., you don't have to just come to PowerCon or Toylanta or LA Comic Con to get it. We'll have an allotment that we sell at the first show, and then we'll keep stuff in stock that as we continue to go to the next show, that we'll have an allotment that we've held back to sell at those shows. And the idea being that we want to come to you guys, and part of the fun is getting those figures and the collectability of them, but also having multiple opportunities. So, you may not have a friend going to said con, but they might have a friend going to the next con or something to that effect. So that's something that's fun to me, that I think is a part of collecting. That I just kind of I don't want to say bring back. I don't know if it was ever that way, but I hate the East Coast, West Coast idea of exclusive convention exclusives. And then I don't understand the idea of selling them online. That doesn't make sense, because then the person that actually went through the whole trouble of coming there feels kind of burned, because they spent way more money coming than the person that bought it online, even if it was marked up. So that's my way of trying to solve that issue. Whether or not it will be successful or not.
You never make everybody happy, right?
Right.
But you can do things based on your personal preferences and the way you'd like to see things done, because it's your company.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't start a company expecting to please everyone. And with that being said, so that is going to be only offered at cons, and it was only offered via Kickstarter. So anybody that did back the Kickstarter and get that figure, they were able to do so on the Kickstarter, but not available anywhere else other than conventions. So Definitely pick that up, the conclusive one. And then Rob, I guess you have certain coins, I believe.
Yeah, I think I have them right here, actually.
Yeah, some coins that are con exclusive as well. The graphic novel, I guess you can say, for the time being, is a con exclusive.
Yes, the graphic novel is for right now a con exclusive, only being sold at conventions. These are the conclusive coins, and so
thanks, Tim.
Some people might get confused and they think these are the coins that come with the all-in. So if you purchase an all-in on the Kickstarter for whatever wave, you get a coin. And so these are actually different colors of those same designs that are only sold at conventions. And so I really enjoy them. I think they're great. When you get them in hand, I think you will appreciate the quality of them. They're not.
They're very heavy.
Yes.
They're not cheap. They're not cheap throwaway things. I mean, if you throw them at somebody, you will hurt them. So.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. We had a good question here. Somebody asked, Endless Fables. So will there be one exclusive across a year of cons?
I wouldn't say one. There's different ways on how we wanted to go about that, right? So I think that maybe 2 is maybe 3 up to into a year, but each one, the idea is that we would hold back stock of a figure to be able to sell at a year's worth of shows, right? And so at one show you might have 1 or up to 3 different conclusives depending on how that time frame works out, right? And that's the idea behind it. But that's something that has to build over a couple of years.
Now, Rob, for wave 1, we kind of got the conclusive because via Kickstarter we kind of got to see what it's like and all that. For wave 2, is there going to be like a conclusive for that you just show at a later time, or how are conclusives as far as figures go going to be revealed moving forward?
It's a product of 2 things: convention schedule and factory schedule.
Right.
That's all there is to it, right? So the factory has to have the right time in, and then we have to pre-plan on our tooling, which we've already done, because I don't really plan on doing. I don't know. I haven't thought about that as much. I can't say that I never will do this, but I think for the most part, like the next conclusive will have new tooling a part of it. I mean, I know that because we just tooled it. So, yeah. So that's kind of the idea. Like, I don't want to make just a repaint of a figure a con.
Right.
It has to be something. I want to add a little something to it, whether it's a couple extra heads, some special weapons, some unique, lack of a better term, gimmick stuff like that in terms of paint decos and things. That's I think to me is fun. I don't know about anybody else, but that's how I view it.
Very nice. Awesome stuff. All right, you guys. Well, it doesn't seem like we have any other questions rolling in. So on behalf of Rob, Nikki, and me, we'd love to thank you guys for tuning in with us. We love talking to you guys and giving you the updates. We love everybody engaging with us too. It's always a fun time. And with that, Rob, if you want to say anything closing out here, Nikki, any last words here?
I just want to say that thanks for everybody for joining. It's super fun to hear your questions and feel your enthusiasm and understanding also for the delays. I think everybody's been great. So thank you.
I second that. Thank you guys for the support. Really appreciate it. And we do plan on doing more shows, and any feedback, we want to keep them shorter. We're even thinking about breaking them up to where we just kind of keep it to this format, and then we might open it up, shut it down and open it back up and just call it a hangout session or something to that nature. So feedback's always welcome on how you guys want us to communicate and interact. And like I said, really appreciate it. Hope to see you guys in Dallas, Maryland, Detroit, and LA.
Thank you guys so much. I hope everybody has a wonderful night.
Bye, everyone.